Microphone check 1, 2. What it do, what it do, what it does. What is going on, family? Welcome to Monday Quality Talks, the 28th episode. How y'all doing, y'all? I hope well. Is the music good? Is the sound of my voice good? Can you guys hear everything properly? Is there anything too loud? It's been a while since I actually operated a live from OBS. Because, last couple of shows I've been doing a lot of conversations via StreamYard. So today, since I'm by myself, I'm operating on my usual system indeed. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Last week on Monday, I was in Bissau, West Africa, Guinea-Bissau, and I tried to do the live from Bissau, but it didn't work out too well. Let me just correct a little bit of quality of the image here. Yeah, be better like this. All right. Doesn't change. Anyway, yeah. So last week tried to do the live from Bissau, and thank you very much. Thank you, brother MS. BU Radio in the building. Appreciate the connection. I was trying to do the live. I was trying to do the 27th episode all the way from the continent. I was excited about it, and then there was noise. The connection was not that great. At least in the beginning it was, but then and then I was like, I gotta do the part 2 and really address this situation that I think is really important. I'm not an expert in the field. I will only be talking today from my personal sentiment and what I've gathered to be elements that I think and deem relevant to the topic I want to touch tonight, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you're looking in the world. Doesn't really matter at the time. It's the fact that Africa is the alternative and has been for a while, but at the same time, maybe reconstructing to the best of my limited abilities and capacities of knowledge in the field. Because again, I don't pretend to know all, and I wanted to actually have a guest on the show today that would be able to speak and help, sharpen a little bit the tool of this conversation with some key insights. But I could not arrange that, and let me just fix this thing because this is bothering me now. I look too red. I know I got some sinus today, but it's not an excuse to look as red as I am, bro. Anyway, be all right now. And so, as I was in Bissau, so how that came about, I had a conversation on that with Keisha last week when we did his club shatter, which actually was great, and I recommend for you guys to go check it out if you haven't done it just yet. Basically, I was reached by my good friend Ricardo Mecarga, who's like, no, we're going to be doing this cultural events. It's going to be good for the country, and they're opening up again. So, there is a possibility for us to do an event, legally, and would you bet on? I said, so of course, man, of course I'm down. So when we got there, it was amazing because it had been a year and a half since I actually traveled, a year and a half since I actually played, performed actually in front of an actual crowd. Um, uh, and well, to be exact, actually, I had two gigs last year, but they were not. There were attempts that we tried to have in the summer here in Portugal, where they were trying to open up, thinking that the country will be fine, and then quickly after that, we found out that we had the second and third waves and whatever. So it was a bit mad. But anyway, with that being said, yeah, being able to go back on the continent after such a long time, and being that the continent was the first place I was gonna get to as a getaway, right? I just felt super overwhelmed by this energy, obviously reconnecting with the motherland. And it doesn't matter if, I'm not from Guinea-Bissau, but, as an African and as a Pan-African, I, I believe home is anywhere on the continent, right? Even though I may not necessarily speak the language, we share some basic cultural references that really allow us to connect. Food is one of them, amongst many others. Education, the respect, the attitude, etc. So, and so, as I was looking at the country, Bissau is really a place where you feel like there is quite a lot that can be done. There's quite a lot that's being done, but there's still so much to be improved, just like many other countries on the African continent, even though there's quite some progress. But there is indeed still a divide, right? There's still, super rich and super poor, and there's still not much really in the middle. And so this is really where obviously it's nothing new, nothing that I discovered when I was traveling there, but it just became even more, poignant to me that, outside of these observations, Africa is definitely the alternative. But as I was looking at this perspective, I really took great care in making sure that I wasn't looking at it from the perspective of somebody that came from the diaspora, from the African diaspora abroad, with these idealistical eyes, right? Because we from the diaspora always have this tendency to, whenever we speak about our countries, either we'll speak super badly of those countries, or we'll speak super positively as though there is nothing to be really fixed, or there is things to be fixed, but we think that we can actually overcome those challenges in a rather swift and efficient way. But most of the time, it is not necessarily true, and it's not always a success, no matter where you are on the continent. However, there are indeed quite a lot of success stories as well, right? From people of the continent and from the continent, but living abroad, going back, having success at the businesses that they embarked themselves upon, and the kind of business journey they embarked themselves upon led them to success. And so I've always been thinking of how we can actually really look into seizing the full potential of the continent. I mean, we have one of the youngest continent in terms of the youth, right? We have so much youth. I don't remember the numbers, but it's about like over 100, probably 100 and some millions youth to be born or to be taking over the continent in the next couple of decades, or the next decade or so. And you're looking at the infrastructures, you're looking at what is being done, and you're seeing that the CNNs, the Press 24, all those big channels who tend to have these documentaries and very interesting, for the most part, documentaries on the continent and showing how the continent is great and is moving. Or some countries in the continent are really doing big things, which is important to obviously focus on that, obviously. But there is still a big issue of access to wealth and, as we all know, a proper repetition of resources on the continent. we tend to see, welcome Emmanuel. Non, je suis gros de personne. Merci beaucoup d'être là. But we tend to obviously see things from these very hopeful eyes, and we are potential driven, and we really see the potential, and the potential is indeed there. But just before I was starting the show, we were talking about my birth country, Central African Republic, with some of my childhood friends, and one of them was like, "Yo, how about we do a live and we talk about what's going on in the country, and that we're at the mercy of France, and look at what they're trying to do now with the surrounding countries, trying to create fake conflicts because of the Russians now really taking over things militarily and politically in Central African Republic. We should really speak on that." And I was like, well, sure, we could and we should, but the thing is that I believe that none of us live home, right? Obviously, yes, we are from Central African Republic. We love our country. We want to see it grow to become the kind of superpower we all dream of it to be. But the problem is that when it comes to really putting down the work and actually getting into it the way it needs to be done, 9 times out of 10, we are, boycotted by our very own, and we always tend to speak about the elderly folks, the older generation not really making room for the youth. I beg to say that unfortunately the youth themselves are actually, not facilitating, or for a lot of the time not really helping one another. There is indeed a tendency to see, well, and again, might be wrong, but according to my acknowledgement and what I can see, that the elderly folks are, the older generation of our parents is actually trying to make room for the youth to really, come into the conversation and really take part in, the building of, our countries. And in Central African Republic, I believe that there is indeed some progress, right? Of course, it could be done in a much major way, but let's not forget where we come from. We had terrible years of war that left the country in an absolutely depressing state, as any state and system can be affected when it comes to war afflicting the population and economy, etc. Knowing that even before the war came, the country was not necessarily doing super well neither. Bad leadership, etc., etc. So all of these things, can lead to indeed discouraging quite a lot of investment and really seeing the opportunity, seeing the potential. But as I want to talk about some of the things that I think will be more maybe business oriented, because when I talk about Africa the alternative, the African alternative for me is on the basis of business, and that could be products and services and so on and so forth. But really, I want to talk about the internet. I want to talk about the type of businesses that allow us out here in Europe or the Western world to be able to make a living, right? To be able to do live shows like the one I'm doing here without an interruption, without issues of electricity, without issues of internet access, and with a capacity to monetize the content that we put publishing out there, which really is, I think, one of the big issues that we have is that we are not able to see yet major companies, corporate companies, understanding the potential that is Africa as a continent, and not just certain countries in West Africa or Northern Africa or Southern Africa. When you speak about, for example, Central West Africa, for example, you might think of, people will mostly speak of, obviously, well, Central Africa, people speak about DRC, then they'll talk about, um, Togo, Angola, then West Africa was going to be, of course, Senegal, Ivory Coast. That's really that. Ghana, of course, yes, let's not forget about Ghana. Yeah, I would say Nigeria, Ghana first, and then Senegal and Ivory Coast. And then, East Africa, you have Kenya, you have Tanzania, you have, you have Rwanda, East Africa, you have, a couple of, megalopole and very, very forward-thinking sort of, government in place that are really, leading, how do you call this, innovation, etc., etc., etc. South Africa, of course, but that goes without saying, and so I think that there's one of the things that we fail to a lot of these big brands, YouTube, for example, fail to see is that as a marketplace, the content, just consumer-wise, I believe that first of all, we are tech savvy, right? Most Africans have at least two phones. Because they use why? Because most of the time they will use two different phone operators, service operators, because of prices and sometimes packages that are different, etc., etc. And so understanding that not only Africans have access to modernity, they understand the technology, understanding that they know how to use the technology. I give, for example, when I was in Bissau, the guy that was driving us, he was on YouTube all the time. He was playing, Black Coffee sets or Danny Gatto sets off of YouTube. And when I said he was on YouTube all the freaking time. He was streaming and playing music from his telephone to the car. So how come we not seeing, for example, advertisement being proposed to companies locally, etc., that could generate, revenue for content creators on the continent, and obviously outside of South Africa or some other countries that benefit from these monetization tools, right? Because these are some of the tools that could actually help a lot of people come out of poverty, come out of precarity. Because one of the issues that we have is the access to jobs, right? And because it is so hard to create a business in Africa, at least, most of the time it is extremely hard to actually start a business from scratch. I mean, it's very, very much made to kind of discourage entrepreneurship. Right? That's why there's a lot of informal businesses. There's a lot of bribery. There's a lot of corruption going on because it's easier to run an underground business than an actual official business where you're going to be taxed out the ass. If you want to start working properly, but because there's just bad governance and understanding of how, in my opinion, again, all these things could be addressed. Taxation, access to the internet, healthcare, etc., etc. I mean, healthcare, forget about it. We don't even have that, But I would say, a more harmonized access to resources that could allow this youth that is going to be the next. This youth is filled with the future leaders of the continent, and if we are not doing what is needed right now to make available, the necessary tools that can allow one to take away some form of monetary reward from the hard work that they put in. For example, creating content like what I'm doing, Keisha, many others are doing, etc., etc. um, we will not, I think, be serving our continent and really playing a part in what the future can look like. You talk about Africa as the fastest growing continent, is this and that, and you see all these numbers. Yes, but who is it benefiting really? And when we talk about this, how is it impacting, the everyday people? That is really the thing. An economy, in my personal, and I'm not an economist, but I would assume and I would believe that an economy that only relies on its top tier players, billionaires, millionaires, etc., big companies, like most of our countries are, and they, most of the time, for example, in Central Africa, look at their population as just, workforce, most of the time not educated, most of the time not competent necessarily, but, or at least not well trained. Well, what do you expect? Things are not going to go the way they're supposed to go. Of course, that is not to say that there isn't change being made, and that there's no sense of progress, and there's no sense of modernization of the system, the economical system, etc. in many countries on the continent. Actually, I was doing some research today it's interesting because the topic I'm talking on today, really, I was looking out because I wanted to document myself a little bit more on YouTube, and it's incredible. There's almost nothing. I mean, there's a lot of videos that talk about specific countries like Zambia, Tanzania, this and that, but it is not a comprehensive take on the whole thing from the perspective I'm trying to touch on, which, again, I won't have enough time of this show to really touch on this specific topic, and I do want to bring in people who understand more than I do the topic, and that can bring true assets to this conversation with the type of knowledge that they have, because they're either on the ground or they have a different read. They read things differently than I do, and probably be more educated than I am. So, but I was looking at one thing, and I wanted to know affordability of internet. Which are the countries on the continent that give affordable access to people, to the internet for their people? And you have Egypt, Kenya, Morocco, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Tanzania, Algeria, Sudan, surprisingly cheap, and the cheapest of them all is Ethiopia. And I was like, wow, that's something. So the cheapest internet, the most affordable internet in Africa, supposedly according to this video I was looking up, is Egypt, Kenya, Morocco, Senegal, Ivory Coast, Tanzania, Algeria, Sudan, and Ethiopia being the number one position. Now, I would obviously have to verify this information, but I was doing this research before I did the show because I just wanted to address the fact that this is really something. Thank you very much, Awahu Dali. Thank you very much for subscribing. I wanted to address the fact that internet is one of the most expensive thing to access in some countries still. But of course, there's exceptions, but I don't want to talk about the exceptions, and I don't want to. We should talk about the exceptions, of course, but I think that we speak about the good things, and it's important to speak about the good things, but I think we need to be a little bit realistic on how we can work on enhancing the things that can be enhanced. And as a content creator, as somebody with the weight that I have in my industry, and many others as well, much heavier than I am in their specific games, not enough is being done to put forth an actual comprehensive plan to these companies and make them understand that, look, the people that you catering to, the clientele that first of all, the question is, do you guys understand the people that you're servicing? Africans are, just because there is a preconceived idea of poverty, and there is indeed poverty on the continent, but it's not the only place in the world that has poverty. Obviously, it has been through the mass media been portrayed as the place in the world where you're gonna have the most horrible things that happen to humans. But anyway, with that being said, you know Africans are not dumb. They're well aware of the fashion. They're well aware of what's going on. Like people are on Instagram, people are watching what's going on. I remember before Instagram became Instagram, girls in Mali, or when I would go to Mali, they were dressed like sometimes even better than American girls, which were the standard of looks and style, etc. Like there was girls back home that were like dressed as good as the Americans, right? Or with as much style as the so-called by Americans in Africa we usually say les Américains. So it was a reference point, but I mean I guess that is the generic word, so even including that maybe the French or whatever. But there's always been a sense of style. People in Africa are very loyal to their brands, especially the brands that have been established the longest on the continent. I mean, you talk about like Coca-Cola, etc., etc. These are brands that people refer to even when they want to just talk about just a sweet drink. It's generically called with these monikers using the oh, you want some Coca-Cola or Fanta, or all these sparkling juice, etc., etc. But that's only talking about that if you talk about, for example, perfumes, clothing, shoes, styling in general. Oh my God, man, there are people save their money to go and buy it overseas. But imagine now if you were to cater services that allow, first of all, shipping, safe, cost effective, and time-wise swift. You have no idea. And also, if on top of that you have countries that harmonizes access to online banking, faster and easiest ways to create like an online bank account. Like right now, you have these apps like Revolut and many others where you can literally just send in your ID, fill in your information, your tax number, whatever, and within minutes your account is created. It's literally that fast, or within a day. Time for them to verify maybe your ID or whatever. But this is the thing. These are the type of access we need to give to our people. But brands, states, etc., still don't believe that we are ready, because of course we are scared. Oh, there's going to be some schemes, but there's always going to be smart folks who will try to outsmart the system, will try to outsmart the platforms, which in a way is good for business, because you know what, it will lead your programmers to up their game and work on better and more secure platforms, etc., etc., etc. So understanding that Africans are connected, they're very well aware of what's going on in the world, right? We need to stop thinking that Africans are not educated, they don't understand what's happening, etc., etc. It's an absolute disservice to the potential of the African market. And by African market, I'm not trying to limit Africa to, I'm not trying to say that it's one market. Of course, there's so many different markets. There's all these countries on the continent that have different kind of interests, and it's something that has to be understood and truly integrated in the whole reflection. But you can clearly see that there is still a big divide in how modernity and how access to these technologies is in those different countries on the continent. Kenya, East Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa. Let's just put it this way: East, West, Southern, and North. Super well served with internet. everything, or at least they're working towards making sure that everything is easier to access, and you can actually run a business. You can actually have Fiverr, for example, this application called Fiverr. I mean, um, it offers services. You're looking for a graphic designer, you can find it on Fiverr. You're looking for a beat maker that's going to do a beat for you for 30 euros. As Kesha was telling me the other day, boom, it's that easy. I myself, I hired some people paid like 15 or 20 years to do a quick design for me, for some of my merch, and I was like, wow, that's incredible. Imagine now if this was generalized to on the continent, and there was ways and technologies that would facilitate access to to these resources for the population and the creative population in this specific matter. It would be crazy. It would be a massive paradigm change that is called for and that is actually needed on the continent, in my personal opinion. So, big brands and any brand has got to understand that you're no longer talking to the cliche, perception that you have given to you or served to you by the mass media. That's like, Africans don't know. When you guys come and try to sell at, how do you call this? At, oh, super high prices, stuff that you haven't sold in your past. For example, as when it comes to design, you bring in old stuff, trying to sell it to people on the continent as if they didn't know that this is not. Well, they may not necessarily know it was the latest collection, but they'll understand fashion wise because they follow all the people that your consumers overseas follow. So they'll see like, this is not necessarily. I've seen this before, right? And some, by default, they'll buy those at premium prices. Well, actually, you know very well that in Europe, these things will be sold for, close. I wouldn't say nothing, but close to half the price of what it was on the shelves when it just came out. So at a certain point, people gotta stop, taking the Africans for fools and understand that, this new generation is definitely more connected, more in tune with themselves, trying to get educated. Yes, indeed, there are still a lot of improvement that can be done in the way we perceive ourselves, in the way we perceive politics, we perceive business. But at the same time, I believe that there's a better cohesion and there's a better interaction between the diasporas, overseas or elsewhere in the world, and the sisters and brothers back home. And I believe the African alternative is one to truly be looked into. When I see, for example, fellow artists, there's a great DJ and creative by the name of Dre Ngozi. I've had her a couple of times on some of my shows as a DJ. She's in Ghana, and her and many others, the good brothers from Art Comes First, Sam and Shaka, between London, Paris, and Abidjan, or Lomé with Ama from Marché Noir. Like a lot more people are going back on the continent. A lot more people are actually establishing themselves on the continent, wherever they are. Okay, and the countries I'm talking about are mostly West African countries, but it doesn't matter. The point is, there is a movement, and eventually that movement will influence the rest of the continent. But in order for that to really be the case, there needs to be, and I think that's where politics enter into the conversation, or at least governments enter into the conversation, where there needs to be a better, and more comprehensive approach to how trade is being handled on the continent. When you think about grabbing a flight from Bamako, Mali to Bangui, Central African Republic, is costing me as much as if I was to grab it from Paris to Bamako. or to Bangui for that matter, if I was flying with Air France, which is a ticket at least 1,500 euros, right? Um, it makes no sense, right? It makes absolutely no sense. And somebody explained to me why was that the case, but I still can't wrap my head around it, because I believe that we are some of the biggest travelers. I mean, especially, for example, if you look at East Africa, they've really loosened up the whole trade between themselves. Like I think there was Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda that actually, I think 4 or 5 countries, I can't remember. But they basically, as an East African, you can travel from these respective countries, you can travel within these respective countries without limitation. Easy access, business, it's safe to invest, it's safe. This is the thing. Also, we have to make sure that we have governments that understand and populations and people that understand that we have got to ensure security of business. The moment a new government comes into place and there's some sort of coup or some other bullshit going on, people can't afford to have their shit messed up because there's a change of government. You know what I mean? There is so much that can be done in that sense. It's crazy for even countries like Senegal or Ivory Coast, for that matter. Whenever there's the election time's coming, I know personally a couple of the people that I know. Yeah, some of them are VIPs and stuff, but still, they live there. They pay the taxes there. They employ people there. They send their families abroad. They send their families to France, to Portugal, wherever they are located in the world or the States. And the men stay there throughout the whole phase of the elections. And this is happening as well in countries as stable as West African countries like Ivory Coast or Senegal or Ghana, etc. Right? Maybe less for Ghana. I don't know. I don't really know Ghana that well, but at least for us, the francophones, unfortunately, so is the problem. So I really think that there's much to be done in the sense of ensuring, first of all, security for business, a better and a more comprehensive approach to how one can start a business, especially when we're talking about small and medium-sized companies on the continent. It's very difficult to operate one, but it shouldn't be. It should be made easy, and obviously, access to credits, etc., should be made in available in a way that would be obviously comprehensive of the local realities. But if we understand and we bear in mind the fact that we have some of the most creative humans in the planet, right? Not that we are the only ones, obviously not. But, Africans are extremely skilled, extremely talented, and all they need is just the opportunities. If you start giving people and it doesn't have to be only arts. I mean, it could be just a fisherman, it could be any businesses. These kind of things will start building a stronger economical cloth that will then hopefully refrain the youth from actually trying to flee those countries, and swim their way out, and most of the time, die along the way, trying to reach shores of European countries, thinking in their heart that it might be worse than it might be horrible, but it won't be worse than what I'm going through in my country. This is not possible. This is just not tolerable at all, as a matter of fact. So one can only but truly feel like, unless we address these topics and in the most honest, transparent, respectful, but progressive way, it's not going to go anywhere. There was this lady that, as I was obviously doing research on that, there was this lady that I think Maggie Diab, on a TED Talk, she was actually talking about that very thing. She was talking about the fact that And she was extremely aggressive. I mean, I don't want to say aggressive, but her ways and the way she spoke. Unfortunately, I know for a fact it won't move much people politically on the continent because we are still very much a patriarchal. You know, we still have a lot of patriarchal society. We are still very much our patriarchal societies. Sorry, trying to find my English words. I'm tired. Um, and so it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, especially if you're a younger person. There's this sense of approaching the elderly because it's also, cultural in a way, right? It might be a bit hypocrite. It might be whatever you want to call it. But the thing is that you cannot believe that you're going to be able to apply um, things that work in the Western world in an environment that is nowhere near and will not even try to adapt to these ways because that's just what it is. Of course, change is needed, but it doesn't necessarily come the way you want it to come, in my opinion. And in order for it to be the most effective, there's got to be a sense of diplomacy, rigor, consistency, dialogue, and accountability. But we have got to take in consideration the realities of our countries, of our African countries, which really, really are not European countries at all. We will never be. And I know a lot of people want to turn um, some of our economies, some of our societies into this westernized ideal of what democracy and liberty and freedom is, but with all due respect, we kind of see what some of that is doing to people out here, and I don't believe that a lot of people want to see that happening in Africa, even though it's inevitably kind of happening in some way, shape, or form. But people are going to try to gatekeep as much as possible, and refrain some of these evolutions, which again, just because it's progress doesn't mean that it's good progress, right? And that's why I think that when we speak on progress and we speak on how Africa is doing so amazingly and such, and so forth, and so on and so forth, I think we cannot omit the fact that the majority of the population of the poor people, of the regular people, doesn't have necessarily access to these opportunities and still is living with the bare, sometimes less than the bare minimum. And actually majority of the time less than the bare minimum. But it is all these little hands and all these little people, supposedly, that actually help, maintain this whole thing together. Because yeah, the rich are rich, but without these people, you don't have people to help, care for your house, wash your car, wash your clothes, look after your kids, etc., etc. It's a whole economy. So now, you know, we've got to, and this is where I think modernity and at least progress needs to really take place, and I see it taking place more and more, of course. But it has to be commended and it has to be really pushed forward, because I think that empowering more people, giving more access to education, giving more access to tools that can facilitate this education, and on top of that, tools that can facilitate access to business, to making money, and to in ways to make money that is going to not only profit the person that's making the money, but also the system, states, the government, by paying taxes, etc. So by doing that, I firmly believe, especially if you harmonize the politics within your countries, and if you harmonize trade and all these things, it's going to be so amazing for, I think, our economies, because clearly, when we have to depend on other countries to send us matches, for example, or sugar, when you have sugar in your country, but you just don't have, the right workforce, or the you don't have the people are not educated enough to understand that if they don't take care of the tools that is at their disposal, they're going to start starving, and they can't expect continuously to be helped by foreign forces or foreign governments, foreign countries with billions and billions of dollars at the time, like we have in Central African Republic, for example, not for lack of will. There's a lot of youth, there's a lot of people that want to, you know, survive. They want to come out of these of their struggles the best way they can. But the reality of the matter is that you know it's not made easy for any of them, right? MIDS, thank you very much for subscribing. So truly, with all this observation made, right? Um, One can ask me, well, why don't you go back in Africa, uh, back to Africa and establish yourself there? I've been contemplating the idea, and I really think that eventually that's going to be happening. Not yet. Why? Because of the very thing that I just exposed here, and there's much deeper layers to those as well. But one crucial aspect is the internet and stability of connection, portability of the connection as well, is something that it's still very much um, expensive. It's just too much. It's just too much money. The money you're gonna spend trying to have the best connection, like the top connection, which will be like maybe 50% of what we got here, you know, maybe 70%. You want to be a little bit generous. It's gonna cost you an arm and a leg. Um, you know, and so I don't know, man. I think that this is where as well, and that's what I was saying. The diaspora has this very, idealistical approach to things, but one has to really go on the continent, check out various countries if you can, visit, see where you feel comfortable, and vibe it up. But I wouldn't move all my eggs in one place, even though, I truly believe in the continent's potential and its growth and its progress and its evolution, which I'm very much part of, and trying to be the part of as much as possible, and be an actor of this progress, one of the actors of this progress. But you know, realities must be taken into consideration when approaching this topic, and understanding that we have got to be humble and maybe a little bit conservative with our hopes, as far as seeing how fast these big corporate companies and systems, which most of them are very, very, very complicated, and again, not necessarily well organized. How fast they're gonna move, that's still to be defined. Unless there's a true political will to see these changes, and governments and leaders. And one may say what they want about Rwanda's president Paul Kagame, but the guy is doing a lot of things for his country. So yeah, he certainly has made a lot of that money off of the back and the life of innocent people in DRC. But at the end of the day, his country is, and I'm not justifying, I'm not saying, but at the end of the day, we must observe the fact that the country is moving, and one of the problems that we see is that unfortunately some of our countries, the biggest wealth, um, doesn't look like these countries will ever truly be completely free from these foreign interferences, because of the natural resources that we have, and the interests in place. But that's a conversation to be had with who's a much more expert person in the topic than I am. And I am planning to definitely try to reach out to a couple of people that I may have access to talk on this. I think it's important. I think it's important. And it's not easy to change. Even though it's necessary, it's not easy to change. So Sometimes in order for change to take place, one has to be patient, one has to be understanding. But again, resilient enough to keep working, keep going back at it, keep hitting people up, and keep being behind people is back and on top of people and be like, yo, let's do this, let's make this happen. Okay, it doesn't work this time, let's do it again, let's try again. You know what I mean? Persistency, man. One has to be persistent, in my opinion. So, yes, I consider the African alternative to be one truly look into it. And we look at it now, even with this whole global pandemic, like it has not hit Africa the way it hit Europe, no matter what you want to say. It obviously has. We cannot deny the fact that economically, obviously, it has affected a lot of people, and continentally, yes, of course, we're not going to deny some effects to the impact of this economy, but it is more so due as well to the fact that borders have been closed, etc., etc. And there was this global thing where it's like, Europe is saying, well, if you don't do it this way, then we're not going to make it happen that way, and then you got to respect the norms. But those norms you guys are fixating works in your economy and in your system. They won't work on the African soils. That's what you have to understand. How the hell are you going to keep people confined in their homes when they have to go out daily to find ways to make ends meet? How the fuck is that making sense to any of y'all? Right? Well, it doesn't matter. They're gonna have to figure out a way. Are you fucking serious? Well, is that or that they die? Do you think they care about if they're gonna die or not? When they gotta look into making sure that they are providing for their families, that their child don't miss a thing, and not even like, oh, they don't miss the latest whatever sweater or pants. They don't miss food, right? Come on, man. Y'all gotta be realistical, And some presidents, some African presidents and governments that actually wanted to implement these ways of handling things, they truly saw that this could turn very much against their favorites, and they switched up quick. Now, obviously, they're not going to publicize that, and they're going to try to keep that whole imagery going on where it's like, yes, we're following protocols, etc., etc. But how the fuck are you going to have your whole population follow any protocols when you're not providing for your population in ways that allows them to actually be home and wait for things to get better and they get money every other month? Even here in Portugal, I know personally some people who still haven't received any help from the government, even though they comply to all that is required for them to benefit from these governmental help. Come on, man. People gotta be realistic, for reals, and in these times where Europe is probably going to wake up from this whole thing at a pace that we don't even know how fast that's going to be. Business-wise, Africa is the answer for a lot of businesses because, there is possible to move. Yes, there is indeed a little less of, social distancing, almost close to zero. At least and it depends which environment you're in. If you're a bit more in a posh or upscale sort of environment, everybody's wearing the mask, everybody's this and that, whatever. But, regular people in the market, they don't wear no masks, and they're still alive. They don't disclose the amount of people that die. Okay, probably so, but to this day, people are still living, and so, but the majority of people in Africa are young, so they're asymptomatic. Oh, okay. Asymptomatic means what? Anyway, the whole topic, man. But all that to say, do your own research. Be a friend of progress, be a friend of evolution, and hold yourself accountable when it comes to your own, sometimes maybe biased perception of what the African realities are versus what you think they are. And the only way to do that most of the time is by going on the ground and figuring it out for yourself and seeing that, okay, well, theoretically it looks, it sounds good, but do it These are the obstacles, these are the obstacles, these are the obstacles, these are the obstacles. Government was, um, these obstacles should actually be harmonized, man. It shouldn't be that complicated to open businesses in Africa and having access to, the tools that allow the world that we're in now today to function the way it does, and maybe to dysfunction the way it's dysfunctional, but at least it is a functional dysfunction. It is functional dysfunction, if you can say it, put it this way, um, you know. But a deep topic, and we're gonna have some more conversations on that for sure. Rest assured, I'm planning on having more of these conversations throughout these Monday Quality Talks. Family, once again, thank you very much. An hour short and to the point. I've written a lot of things, but I think I've pretty much gone through, most of the topics. I didn't speak on corruption, but lack of harmonization of laws and taxations and visibility of running a business in a healthy environment lead to corruption, lead to a corrupted system, because it's then easier to run things on the sideways of the actual that have been put in place by the government, that are so inconsiderate of the reality, especially, for example, if you are trying to, for example, I don't know, if you build home fabrics, home furnitures, right, with African wools, etc., trying to put forth the African talents and savoir-faire. I mean, export is going to cost you an arm and a leg, let alone import, if you want to import anything, unless you import it from China. But even then, I mean, I don't know much on those numbers, but I don't know the numbers per se, but I do know that they are quite high. And again, better job can be done, but I think it's on the way. And I believe in us. I believe in the youth. I believe in all the generations to come together. And there's some good people out there. Not everybody's rotten. Not everybody's fucked up. Not everybody's corrupted. But if there's one thing that is for sure, we know as Africans how things have to be run in our countries and how we need to handle our matters the best we see fit. On this words, family, thank you very much for tuning in for this 28th episode of Monday Quality Talks. And I truly appreciate those of you who subscribed. No donations tonight, but I do hope that you will still be able to go through the description section of the this video here below. You have links. You can donate via PayPal, via Binance or Revolut, cryptos, whatever the case may be. We take them all. It's all about love. I hope that you've appreciated this live, and if you do, make sure you press the like button. I don't see enough likes. You gotta see those likes going up, and make sure you follow me on all my other socials. Stream the music. Go to Boddhi-Satva.com and get some merch as well. Be part of the Boddhi's movement. And once again, thank you very much for tuning in. This was yours truly, Boddhi Satva. Thank you to BU Radio, to Emmanuel Etienne, and all those watching right now and during the replay as well. May you all have a fantastic unfolding of your week. May it be successful. And shall see you Friday for Quarantine Grooves. That's right. Be well, family. God bless you. Take care of yourselves. You made a good point here, Erica. Novel makes me think of the brain drain that takes place. Another topic that could be discussed in future. Definitely. Well, I will look into that. And maybe you can elaborate, maybe help elaborate on the topic. Like that. I like that. I'm all for this kind of conversations. Thank you for watching.